So good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's public consultation regarding the Morgan's Grant Off-Leash Dog Park. This meeting is being hosted by the Councillor's Office. Before we begin, we would like to start with a land acknowledgement. Ottawa is built on the unceded Anishinaabe Algonquin territory. The peoples of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. La ville d'Ottawa rend hommage au peuple et au territoire de la nation Anishinaabe algonquine. La ville d'Ottawa rend hommage à toute la Première Nation, à tous les Inuits, à tous les Métis, de même qu'aux précieuses contributions passées et présentes à cette terre. Tonight's meeting will proceed as follows. We will begin with opening remarks from your ward councillor, Councillor Curry. Then we will turn to a presentation from the city and its architect. The presentation will be led by both Donna Williams, planner in Parks and Facilities Planning, and Jeff Castor, landscape architect from Castor and Company. We are also joined by Kevin Weary, manager, Parks and Facilities Planning, Recreational Culture and Facility Services. Following the presentation, the floor will open to questions from the public. Individuals wishing to ask a question may use the raise hand function or submit questions to me in the chat. Once queued, you will be prompted to unmute yourself and given 3 minutes to formulate and ask a question. This is not a period to go back and forth with either the city representative or the architect, but more so to just formulate and ask your questions or submit any comments. I'll raise my hand at 1 minute and verbally notify you at 30 seconds. You can also ask questions through the comment section, which will be monitored throughout the meeting and asked intermittently. Final housekeeping note, tonight's meeting is to discuss the public designs proposed and available on the city's Engage Ottawa webpage, and only those. So I will turn it over to Councillor Curry for her comments.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you very much, everyone, for attending here tonight. This is long awaited for sure. For those of you who have been emailing me for almost a year and a half, I'm very happy that we're holding this. I really thank a lot our staff for getting us 2 designs for us to look at and for attending tonight to answer any questions you may have. I did want to make it very clear that the consultation tonight is on whether you think option A or B is the better option. So the conversation tonight is, should we have a dog park or not? It is not that. It is, which one do you like, A or B? And definitely, we had a pre-meeting with our staff and they are prepared to answer all of your questions. There's been a ton of feedback so far, and Donna Williams, who will talk to you tonight, has read all of it and given us a general overview of some of the issues so that we're prepared to answer all the questions you may have. I'll let you obviously ask them, but know that every single thing you have written in so far has been read and received and taken into consideration. Very much because there's 2 designs, it's somewhat of a vote, but it's not only that. Your comments tonight will make sense of the actual responses, whether A or B is more preferable, and you'll get more information here tonight as well that may help you understand that. I will say that this is not the final, like the A or B a decision would be made, but the exact placement of the dog park can slightly change. There will be further conversations with Hydro One, obviously, to make sure that everything is perfectly fine with the materials. We'll probably get some of those questions tonight. But, you know, I know there have been comments about where the 2 designs are located in relation to the public gardens and to the pollinator gardens, and ask all those questions because I think you'll be happy to hear that there can be tweaks made. The exact dimensions, the exact location is not final yet, and changes can be made. But these 2 are the general locations. One on one side, basically, of the vegetable gardens, and one on the other. And here we are tonight deciding which will be better. I will leave it at that. Based on what questions are asked and comments are made, I may have a comment at the end. I probably will, but I certainly thank you all. And I would look forward to this being built next year, not this year, but you'll get more of that in the presentation from staff. But thank you all for coming tonight.
Great, thank you. So I will throw it over to Donna and Jeff, and I will share my screen right now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Donna Williams. I work in Parks and Facilities Planning, and I have been working with Jeff Castor on coming up with a location for the off-leash dog park in the Kanata North area. And this has been in the planning for a long time. And from the comments that we've received on Engage Ottawa, there's a lot of really excited people they're really looking forward to having a spot to bring their dogs and to socialize. And so I'll jump right into the two options that we are looking at, both off of Klondike Road. Option A, which is street frontage off Abbeydale Circle and Peacock Crescent. We looked at that option as one of our first options. But we did find that on that side there is this existing dry stormwater management pond that we are not permitted to place the dog park within the dry storm ponds. So we had to shrink that location slightly, and it did change the shape somewhat of option A, but it's still a viable location. Even given the different shape, it would work as well as option B. I did notice, I walked the site just recently, and I noticed off of Abbeydale Circle there is a recent pollinator garden in the little triangle just off Abbeydale Circle, and that wasn't there prior. But it is there now. So it's something that we would, if option A was the preferred location, that is something that we would look at when designing the dog park. Option B is on the other side of Klondike Road, and it is on the community garden side, which is closer down by Whernside and off Roy Arrington Way. Also a good location. This location, there is presently dogs currently off leash. So we thought they're already at this location, that this may be a great location for an off-leash dog park, given that they're already there. We also thought, I've looked at other municipalities who have created dog parks located within community garden areas, and they seem to work very well as a community meeting space. And so there's certainly different activities that can complement each other. And we would, of course, respect and provide the adequate space between the two areas. We are not proposing parking as part of this phase, but we're feeling that I feel that most, I think, will be walking to the site, but there will be some people that will drive. And we feel that the streets can accommodate the parking. If in the future this proves to be problematic, we do have areas on both sides for potential future parking. Option B could be off of Whernside potentially, and option A off of Klondike Road. But that's not part of the scope of this phase, where it will be potentially future should the need arise for us to look into that further. I'm going to now hand over the presentation now to Jeff Castor, our consultant, who can speak to more about criteria of the dog park, and then start to get into the details of location A and location B.
Thanks very much, Donna, and hello, everybody. Thanks for attending our presentation. Yes, I guess people probably realize that dog parks aren't completely new to Ottawa. The city of Ottawa does have a significant number. I can't I don't know how many exactly, but this is the fourth one that I've worked on. So they do have some established criteria based on some of the research that's out there in terms of what the do's and don'ts are with dog parks. So I'll just briefly review them. So in terms of size, to a certain extent, the bigger area, the better. In terms of minimizing, negative social behavior of dogs and less impact, excuse me, impact on turf and that sort of thing. So 0.3 hectares is about the minimum size, and that's what we have achieved with location A and B. The perimeter should be protected, or I guess enclosed by a non-climbable fence. Typically, chain link is used. And you need to be at least 5 feet high because there are lots of athletic dogs out there who might be inclined to jump over the fence and run away from their masters otherwise. In terms of the getting access into this space, we typically put in a little bit of a vestibule with a double gate system, and that again provides an opportunity for dog owners to unleash their dogs and in a quiet, controlled manner, and because they're usually quite excited, maybe the dogs more than the owners. And also the ability to have a specialized refuse container is very important, not just a typical park litter receptacle. These things are much larger and emptied by garbage trucks or hydrovacs, depending on the design. The facility, like all City of Ottawa park spaces, needs to be accessible for people with disabilities. And we have the advantage here of a long linear pathway system and a relatively flat ground, so that's all good. Also has to be accessible to maintenance vehicles for maintaining the grass and also emptying the receptacle. Ideally, we have some accessible seating or a picnic table in the facilities as well. And signage should be posted to let people know what the facility is and the rules of behavior, that sort of thing, emergency contact information. Also, for the benefit of the dogs and keeping their feet healthy, I understand the aggregate paving that we use is kind of hypoallergenic and antibacterial. So there's you'll see on the designs, there's some of that crushed material that's used in the entry area. And yeah, so the hydro corridor is this very long, vast space that runs through your community. And you'd probably think it's pretty easy to drop a 3.3 or 0.4 hectare facility into this space, but it is a little bit challenging. We have, there are 3 sets of transmission lines that run through the corridor. And we have to stay at least 15 meters away from each and every one of those poles. So that kind of limits our opportunities to place this facility without having a convoluted shape that becomes a bit of a challenge to manage for dog owners. We also have a number of stormwater management facilities. They're not always visible as such because they're considered dry ponds, meaning I believe it has to be a pretty nasty storm in order for water to actually pour into them. But we still have to stay out of them in terms of any sort of facility like this. Yeah, and obviously there's other uses going on in this corridor. There's the extensive pathway system that connects through your community, and also facilities like the community garden or allotment gardens, I guess, and we're seeing the pollinator gardens as well. And obviously there are naturalized air spaces that should continue to exist there. So the other criteria, as we're kind of plotting where these things can go, is where it will be most accessible to the most number of people in the community, meaning well connected with pathways and streets, that sort of thing. And also access, how can we get service vehicles to them? And so the existing pathway network provides a step up in that regard. And obviously we try to be good neighbors and look for streets that are abutting the space, like Arrington Way and Peacock and Abbeydale, and not and stay as far as possible from people's backyards. So it does make it a challenge, and these 2 locations really were the ones that met the planning criteria as best we could find, and none of them are perfect, but we think that both of them are viable. So we're glad that You've seen them on Engage Ottawa and have had a chance to comment. We'll be reviewing the comments after this meeting and further down as we get into design. The councillor, I think, mentioned our requirement to consult with Hydro One because it's their transmission lines, their easements on the city property. So everything we do, and you'll notice on our designs that we have a couple of different options for fence because we don't know exactly what how high a metal fence. The issue is putting up anything metal, whether it's a maintenance vehicle or temporarily, or else something like a chain link fence. So that all has to be reviewed. I have an electrical engineer that's working with me on this. When the time comes, then we have a specific design. We will need to meet with Hydro and figure this all out and see what kind of materials we'll be allowed to use and where exactly things can be positioned. So there's still a lot of planning and designing around their concerns as well. So Andrew, if you could put up concept A, please, we'll take a closer look at that location. That's B. That's A. Thank you. Okay, so you can see how we're connecting to this green space. It's 0.3 hectares. We kind of highlight it in green. You can see the fence around the perimeter and how the existing pathway and rebuilt pathways will connect to the access points for maintenance and for park users. The pedestrian gates are on the left side of the page, or if it may, perhaps Andrew, if you could point to the or zoom in on the entry area. That would be good. Okay. Right. So these are the common elements I mentioned that we try to design into a dog park, and that would be the vestibule area at the entranceway with a double gate system. That orangey blush color is the aggregate paving. That's helps protect dogs from I guess infection from too much company. And yeah, and the chain link, we are proposing obviously a continuous fence around the entire area. We don't know exactly what material that'll be made of. The chain link is typically done vinyl coated, which makes it black and perhaps a little more aesthetically pleasing than the galvanized metal. It also protects it from dog pee, which is fairly corrosive. So you can see in the upper left-hand corner an existing facility with the upper left-hand corner, the signs with the friendly reminders of good behavior, and the pedestrian gates. And then just to the right of that picture, you can see an alternative fence that would be built out of wood and have a heavy plastic mesh on it to make it impermeable to dogs. And that might be where we'll have to go once we have a chance to chat with Hydro One about issues related to working under a transmission line. In the center of our pictures at the top, you can see the dog waste receptacle. It's a fairly robust structure. This one is a preferred one for maintenance because they can use a garbage truck to lift this bin and empty it and set it back down. It has a fairly heavy sealed lid. To the right of that is a picture of what we sort of nicknamed pee posts to hopefully encourage dogs to pee on them instead of the shade trees or the fences and the picnic tables and all the other elements that we don't want them to pee on. And there's a typical park picnic table and an accessible bench as well, just to give you an idea of the furnishings. So yeah, and on our drawing, you can see how the hydro transmission towers and the 15-meter setbacks kind of limit our space. And A is definitely reduced a little bit in terms of what we would have liked to have done in terms of size because of the stormwater management pond just to the upper and the right of the green space. And you can see in the photograph, I'm sure you know your community, the infrastructure we're dealing with the transmission lines and the kind of the lay of the land there. That's the view from Pycroft Circle. And okay, yeah, if we could switch to B, and it'll look very similar, just in a different location. Okay, yeah, here we go. So the same basic elements connected with the existing pathway network. We're very close to Whernside, so easy for people who may have limited mobility to get to this site, and also maintenance will probably like it because the emptying of the garbage is very close to the street as well for their service access. And we have the same vestibule, aggregate paving, some shade trees, welcome sign. Yeah, this side, we're able to squeeze a little more space here. This is 0.4 hectares, so we're about 30% larger in terms of the square meters that we have available for all the dogs and their masters. And yeah, a little bit of rearranging of some existing boulders to do on this site, but nothing significant. And yeah, I think that's probably it for A and B. Don, is there anything else that you should point out about the
No, I think you covered it well, Jeff. Thank you.
Great. So I suppose at this point I will unshare my screen, and then we can turn to questions from attendees. I can share again if you have any particular questions regarding the design or not. I'll share. Okay, so I have a few questions that were already sent to me by the chat. So I will ask those, and then so the first question from M. Lavery, whether the city would consider having a one light standard, one that would not affect residents who back onto the dog park. So that would be the first question.
Okay, we don't typically light dog parks. It's above our service level, and given that it's a hydro site, there also, I imagine, Jeff, would be constraints as far as adding lights along the hydro corridor. We have several dog parks in the city. We've had many requests to light them. It's difficult in order to achieve safe lighting of an amenity or a facility, you can't just light a part of it. It would have to be safe. So if you're inviting somebody into a space, it needs to be a safe space and not have dark spots after somebody enters the site. So that's the difficulty in adding one light to enter. People will enter the site and it won't be safe throughout.
Yeah, so indeed. Sorry, go ahead.
It's not, yeah, so it's out of our scope, and it doesn't meet our lighting policy to light the facilities.
Julian, the resident did want to share that her or their interest was also for safety reasons. Lindy Wolf, you have 3 minutes starting now.
Okay, I don't actually have a question. It's more of a comment. And I'd like to preface my comment by disclosing that I'm a BMGCA board member. However, my views expressed here tonight do not reflect the community association. The community association takes no position on the dog park or the location. So due to the time limit, I'll frame my comment with the understanding that an upcoming community discussion is planned to review past work, including ecological restoration and the vision for the corridor's future. You mentioned the pollinator garden. As a Kanata North volunteer working on the pollinator gardens and the restoration projects, my comment relates to the potential impact the dog park's location could have on our project. So we're slowly transforming an area that was full of invasive plants and noxious weeds into a wonderfully rich meadow-like mini landscape filled with colorful native wildflowers and grasses to support pollinators from April through October near where you mentioned earlier, the path to the Abbeydale Circle. So this project is meant to serve many purposes, which we don't have time to cover here tonight. However, one important purpose is educational, and it requires interactive participant discussions. So I love dogs. I have 2 of my own. However, running dogs would be a huge distraction for young people that we plan to engage in events at this area. And barking is not easy to talk over. I know, because I live in a house with a lot of barking. So unfortunately, option A is right in front of the pollinator garden, and it looks like the entrance to option A is very close. So I respectfully request that this negative impact be considered when choosing the location. You can mute me now.
You have 30 seconds. You have 50 seconds.
I have nothing else to add, but thank you.
Duly noted. If Donna or Jeff have any comment, you're welcome to. Otherwise, I will turn to a chat question. Nothing to add? Sounds good. Jeff, you touched on this a little bit with your comment regarding the required distance from the hydro poles, but question is, are there circumstances under which option B would be made larger than the 0.4 hectares being proposed?
Well, it wasn't for lack of trying. It's just to get a kind of a cohesive, regular shape without blind corners and stuff like that. And working around the hydro poles and all that. This is kind of the limit we got. It wasn't by intent that we came up with 0.4. It's just that's as big as we can stretch it, really, just physically with all the constraints there.
Duly noted. You can ask questions live by raising your hand. Otherwise, I'll continue in the chat. Another question has been, are there any provisions to segregate for small, nervous, and or unsocial dogs in the design of the park, that is?
I think if this is a request, we can look at it. And Jeff, maybe I'll get you to comment further. We have to see if we have the space, right? That's I think that would be our constraint, and to separate the large from these. I'm not sure that that we have adequate space to do a separation. I'll let Jeff comment on that further. I believe this size, I think, of dog park is similar to the one we have in the East End, Shefford, which is one dog park. It's not separated. But I think, Jeff, you can jump in, but I'm not sure we have adequate space to have the separation.
Yeah, that's a good point about separating the two, like small dogs, large dogs. Unfortunately, we're short of the space we need to really effectively be able to do that. We would have to have a vestibule and the same sort of infrastructure around the entranceway in both if we section it in half, or we wouldn't be a half. Small dogs, smaller space, large dogs, larger space. But I think we need probably more like 0.6 hectares. It rings a bell. I've only worked on one dog park that was separated between the small and the large dogs, and I believe that was around 0.6 that we needed for that. I just kind of escapes my mind, but yeah, 0.4 isn't that big to do that.
Right. Yeah. For Donna, can we confirm that the pathways from Klondike to Brady would be maintained as part of the dog park development?
Maintained it's an existing pathway, right? Asphalt
Winter,
pathway that connects through. No, these, and I'll touch upon that. So the dog parks are not winter maintained. What is winter maintained is the path that will lead to the waste receptacle. But our dog parks are not lit, and they're not it's not currently plowed, and there's no intent to my knowledge to plow the dog park in the winter. They're beaten path. I think people are in there, and it'd be a beaten path. but definitely, obviously, where our waste receptacle is, will have to be cleared to the waste receptacle.
Okay. There are two comments here on one from Kellyanne King, the other from Christine Marcel Brazo. One notes that Shepherd Park in the east does in fact use solar powered lights, and the other is asking whether solar powered lights at various points along the fencing could be implemented for the lighting purposes.
I think she's right. This is I think it's a proto, it is a test, I think.
Okay.
That one does have one light. And where I would have to check with my colleague to see how, you know, how it's working at that site. None of the other dog parks in the city do have lights. I'd have to get more information on that one. So on the solar light, certainly, you know, it's you know, it would be a challenge, and I'm not sure with our hydro constraints if that's something that that is an option. And I'm not sure either with the Shepherd site if there's other spillover lighting that comes into play that would light it, you know, that would provide adequate lighting.
Yeah, Kevin Weary is the general manager for the department. Do you want to intervene? Your sound isn't coming through.
Sorry, is that better?
That's good.
Sorry about that. I just want to add to Donna's comments. The Shepherd one, as she said, is a pilot project, but also I want to point out that the Shepherd project is in an industrial area. It's not backing onto residential homes. So to us, it was an attempt to look at solar as an opportunity. And we're still evaluating it because the operating cost of solar, I mean, the price of electricity versus replacing batteries, et cetera, we're still evaluating whether or not it's worth it. And it's not exactly a standard at all. It's more like an experiment. We have concerns about a light remaining on all night as well from a noise perspective. So we're looking at it, but by having one that was segregated from residential homes, we thought we would do a pilot project at that one location.
Okay, so there you have it for Kellyanne and for Christine Marcel. Steve Barlow asked about the hours of operation. So what time will it be open? What time will it be locked? And by whom? So whose responsibility is it to regulate? Yeah, so I'll start with that. Oh, I think we lost on there. There you go.
Yeah. The dog parks, and Kevin, maybe you can jump in because you have more experience with the dog parks. They're not locked, to my knowledge. They're fenced, but they're not locked. And the hours of operation would be our park hours. You know, and we would have with the park, we'd have a park signage that will have. You know, we could post hours of as well on the park signage, as well as you know, other information on the sign that would go that would be informative for the dog, you know, for the dog park.
I really don't have anything much to add for Donna's response. It won't be locked. It's just like any other park amenity. The bylaw says you're closed at 11 p.m. There is no need to staff it, to lock it, to manage it and control it in that way, the same way we don't do it with playgrounds or basketball courts or any of our other outdoor amenity spaces.
Okay, I will turn to Lucas in a second. Final question from one of the questions I have left in the chat. Is there a scenario under which both spaces would be used, or like both spaces would be designed? Here in particular referencing one for large dogs and one for smaller, less social dogs. This is being asked by Klaus Dorn.
We are limited with resources, and
right.
You know, it is you know, they are costly, although it, you know, yeah. So no, we're limited to creating one. Our scope of work is to create one space, one dog park in the community. So it would be one A or B.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, so
Good idea though, but
right,
but not
right,
feasible.
right. All right, Lucas, you have 3 minutes starting now.
First off, I would like to kind of ask, there's gonna be proposed a few trees for either of those options. I guess one of them being those in each of those options being in the enclosure, like an out. So would it be feasible or logical to have like a little like chicken fence wire around those little like not very I guess maybe little trees, I guess not very big, because to even though if you want to have try to encourage the dogs to pee on those wooden post thingies, but there's no guarantee it's going to avoid it, so it's to try to still get kind of have a certainty it won't the dogs won't pee on the little saplings of trees, so they don't die so quickly if possible, or like you want them to grow into big healthy shade trees and not die when they're like very recently planted. So if that's possible, and is only one tree planted, it seemed like inside the enclosure, is it possible to add one more just in there inside the enclosure for like potential eventually shade when it grows, because it's a relatively big area. So that's what I have to say.
All right, you still have 90 seconds.
Like it's I find like it's good to have these things, these the enclosure, because it's you want more of like protected for less anxiety for people of having off-leash dogs. So it's I really appreciate that the city for doing this. And so is there any so there's no, if you would be choosing the wooden one, is there any concern at all of the rotting of the wood, or the for the metal fence for it to be rusting in the winter time? So I think that's about it.
Okay, just about on time.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I'll ask Jeff. Maybe you could comment on the tree protection and the
Thanks, thanks, Lucas. It's nice to hear from another tree guy out there. So yeah, you've got some really good detailed questions about what it'll take to keep trees alive. It is a really tough environment. First of all, you're in a very open, windswept area, so tree planting in that situation, we'd be planting fairly large stock to begin with, 2-inch caliper, 12 feet high, 10, 12 feet high, to give them a good start. And you're absolutely right. The trees that are in the area of the off-leash area particularly will need to have guards around them. So there is a detail I've seen the city use before to protect the trunk of the tree from dog pee, and it's a lot like a big heavy plastic rigid pipe that goes around it. So the pee does not hit the trunk, which is corrosive. So that's what we'd be looking at for tree protection at the very least. In terms of siting the trees on concept A and B, it's a little bit arbitrary at this point. I tend, as a landscape architect, I try to put the trees at entranceways and where people are congregating and where people are sitting for shade. But we're really at the mercy of Hydro One when it comes to what we can do. And can these be big trees, or do they have to be smaller trees that don't go very high because of the danger of the transmission wires up high? So we have to go back to Hydro just to find out what trees, if any, and where can they go for our design. So that is one of the mushiest parts of this design at this stage anyway. But yeah, certainly if any trees go there, we have to do more than just fire them into the ground and hope that they're going to survive.
thank you. I'm going to prompt M. Lavery to try to unmute themselves. If not, I will ask the question you submitted to me in the chat here. Would you like to ask it live?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you so much. So I apologize, I'm going back a step.
3 minutes.
Donna Williams had mentioned around snow removal. And then that would be only completed, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was Abbeydale. And I'm talking about option A, where it would be a very short spot that would be removed for snow. And I know you had mentioned you had walked that area, and from Klondike to say Brady, that's quite the walk, right? And most dog owners are going to be coming up from the pathway, like using the path that is there. Right now, we don't have snow removal, and it's a natural and sometimes quite hazardous place to walk your dog, but everyone wants to walk their dogs along the hydro corridor, even in the winter. So I was wondering if there could be some consideration. I know it's not considered in the current proposal about how we can improve snow removal along that hydro corridor in general. So that was just the one part, because it would, I mean, snow removal, we know at times can take a while, and that would be quite the route for a lot of people to come in off that one angle. Just thinking about that, just from a safety perspective. Thanks so much.
You still have 90 seconds.
I'll give that back to everyone.
Duly noted. Thank you. So to Donna and Jeff, regarding the paths again, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I can certainly bring it up with our park maintenance team.
Okay.
And find out. But as I understand it, it is not a lit, and it is not currently maintained. So that is not in their work program, but I will go back to them. I'll ask the question, and then I will get a response back.
Okay. And you, and Mallory, you can reach out to our office, and somebody will help get you a response. Steve Barlow asks whether a version of the large waste storage container exists with an eco toilet for people to use. Do we know? No, not sure.
I am not aware of one. I don't know if you are, Jeff.
Yeah, Councillor Curry, you have a comment.
No, I'd be happy to look into it if there is a source for something like that.
Well, I was gonna say that I don't know what you're exactly meaning by eco, Steve, but we had those 2 toilets put up there by South March Highlands. Councillors were asked if they wanted some whatever those are called, porta potties, portable toilets, placed at pathways, like where there's a lot of people, and we put 2 of them there. So I don't, if it were allowed by Hydro One, we could put another one there. It all comes down to Hydro One, but I could designate one there instead of having 2 over at the other, or maybe we would get designated more. But again, as long as Hydro One agrees. But that's not maybe eco toilet though, Steve. I'm not sure if you mean that.
I will direct it to you, Steve Barlow. Here.
I was just using that as a term for some type of a toilet that's not plumbed into underground sewer systems and piping connections. I was thinking, with a holding tank that could be pumped out regularly, along with the dog waste being collected, something along those lines.
Okay. Okay. We'll look into that one, I guess, and follow up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kellyanne King asks whether we have available at hand estimated local pet populations and forecast for the area. So do we know what currently exists in terms of pets that might use the dog park and what they anticipate having in the future?
I do not have a demographic. I do not have the demographics of the Kanata North area. I can just in reviewing the all of the comments that have come in on Engage Ottawa, there are several dogs in the neighborhood and people who are quite excited about having a space, but I do not have a number on the number within the community.
Mhm. Okay. There's a comment here by Jenna Dombrowski expressing concern over option A, which fronts on several doors across the street, and commenting whether there might be some type of mitigation measures to address that, the fact that it does so, that it fronts onto multiple doors across the street. Yeah.
Yeah, when we looked at the two options, we looked at option A. Because option A has street frontage, that we thought that was a pro in. I mean, it didn't have the backyards, and there was a street. Recognizing there is, I think, a couple of houses that kind of side onto it. Whereas but understand that so there's a distance from the homes, but I understand, so they would be looking at it opposed to a backyard, facing a backyards on it. So but we thought that was an advantage in the sense that also for street frontage for option A was there was street parking along those streets too. But certainly I, understand the concern with perhaps some residents visually, that it's closer than maybe they would like.
Right. Okay. Christine Marcel Brazo asks whether the existing options have measures that would increase the shade within the park. I'm guessing that would be to you, Jeff. So
Yeah, we are sensitive to the need for creating a little bit of cooling. I think everybody's aware of that now. As I mentioned earlier with the question about how we protect trees to make them thrive in that location, we are kind of at the mercy of what Hydro One will tell us as far as how many trees and where and how high they can be, that sort of thing. So I don't really have any answers other than that we will try to put as much shade out there as we can, given resources and the limitations of working under the transmission lines. As far as any structures or light poles for that matter, like shade sails or a gazebo, that's probably going to be a hard no, because they're already concerned about a metal fence 5 feet high. So ideally trees made of wood, not conducting electricity, we'll be able to do, but we'll have to go back to Hydro One with a specific layout and proposal and see what they tell us.
thank you. As currently designed, would there be plans for a fresh water supply for dogs and or thirsty people to use?
It's not part of this scope for this phase of the project. Certainly on concept A, there is no water service. Concept B, there's the community garden, so I would imagine there is a water source at that side, but it is not part of the scope of this phase of the project.
Okay, so just to be clear, on either design, there would not be the fresh water.
No, sorry. Option A, there's no water source on option A, off Peacock and Abbeydale. There is no water source, so that would be extensive. That would be very expensive to tie into. Option B, we'd have to review further. There's the community garden. I don't know where and what the water source is there, but I mean, it could be reviewed, but it's out of scope for this project. It's not within our current budget, but potentially if option B were the successful option, it could be looked at in the future.
Thank you. Is it possible for the city to periodically, this is from Lucas, is it possible for the city periodically in the short term to water the proposed trees that will be planted. I'm guessing this is more like of a maintenance. Do you water the trees that you plant?
They are when it's part of a contract, the contractor waters, and then our operations team take over. They're under, I guess they're under a warranty. There's a warranty period.
Yeah, if I could just give
Sure.
a bit more detail on that. Typically when we're planting caliber larger size trees on park property, there's a 2-year full maintenance and warranty that goes with it. So the weeding, the touching up the mulch, the watering, all that stuff is taken care of for the first 2 years, which are kind of the critical period when you're trying to establish a tree. So yes, and then from that point on, I guess it's dependent on environmental conditions and city resources and nature.
Got it. Just a few submitted comments here again regarding their support for having access to water, and that utilities ought to include water as part of the design. So yeah, those are all the questions, comments. Oh, okay. Martin Gagnon asks whether a noise level study and a traffic level study would have been triggered and completed for these designs.
The answer is no. There hasn't been. We've there's dog parks that have been built throughout. Other dog parks have been installed in other areas of the city, and they don't fall outside of the noise bylaw.
Right. So they would be subject to the job.
And traffic, a traffic study has not been, a traffic study has not been completed. We are anticipating that this is a community dog park, that it will be people within the community. There will be some people that drive, but we are not anticipating that it will not be accommodated by on-street parking, at various times throughout the day, that we're not anticipating that it will be problematic.
Got it. So I have no outstanding questions in the chat or comments. I'll give you maybe a minute or two if anybody does have anything outstanding. Otherwise, we'll turn it to Councillor Curry and the presenters, of course, to wrap up. So does anybody have any more questions? Anything you submitted in the chat that I may have missed? I think I covered all of it. No? Oh, the final. When will the decision be rendered?
The Engage Ottawa posting closing date is tomorrow, so we will review and evaluate with the councillor, and we will get a response. We will update Engage Ottawa and respond, provide a response on our Engage Ottawa webpage.
Okay. Steve Barlow, you have a question to ask? I can unmute you.
Okay, I was trying to type it up for you.
It's all good.
I was just going to make a comment that on M. Lavery mentioning about the snow in the winter, and I've been in the process of trying to see if there's a way that we could have the entire length of the pathway, right from Terry Fox right down to the far end, opened up for winter use, because we've seen the amount of use that the pathway and the corridor gets used in the summer. It's extraordinary. I was witness to that firsthand, and yet when I look at it in the wintertime, it's virtually unusable because the pathways are not kept open, and you can see evidence of people trying to walk along the pathway, either with a dog or just going from A to B, and it's virtually impossible. So the idea that I had was like a winter trail pathway, but that requires specialized equipment that I don't think the city's planning or willing to supply. So the other option would be to ask the city to add it on to their winter plowing operation, where they do have the equipment for it, and it's just a matter of scheduling it in and plowing it the way other sidewalks would be done. And knowing from experience, when I worked there doing that, the entire pathway from Terry Fox all the way to the end and turn around and plow all the way to the back would be an hour's work for somebody that's already doing other sidewalks in the neighborhood. So it could quite easily be set in. And I did have some ladies that I spoke to and asked them if they would use the pathways in the winter, if they were passable. And they said absolutely, because they normally drive to the rec center in the winter time, and they would happily walk to the rec center if they could take the pathway. So that's my comment, that it would make a lot of additional use of the entire corridor in the winter without any fear of ticks, as has been mentioned about the concern of ticks in the summer. So that's that. Thank you.
Thank you. Certainly something our office can look into. Donna, did you have something to say, or because I saw you were writing?
No, that's
good.
good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So seeing no outstanding questions, comments submitted, and seeing no hands raised, I will turn to Councillor Curry for wrap up.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you, everyone. Those were excellent questions and comments and thoughts. You know, when you think about the real life use of the park, of a dog park with the water and the paths, as you guys are talking about now, these are all things we can talk about. The trees and the heights, absolutely. Hydro One will have to weigh in on that, and the fencing and the the exact location in terms of distance from the towers to make sure we're okay. So more to come, obviously, in details. I would encourage you to, if you haven't filled out the survey, to go on and make more comments or make a comment. And if you want to add more, make more comments, that's perfectly fine. Send anything else to us if you like. Everything you send to me, I read, obviously, and then it goes to Donna immediately afterwards. The question about the pet numbers, there is a way to get that information if people bought their dog tags. You know, you have to buy a dog tag and a cat license, like you have to have the little tag things, right? And register your pets. So there is a way that we could find that out. So, you know, that might be helpful for us to know. The one thing I did want to say was thank you to Lindy for making a comment about the larger vision of the corridor, because that is a project that was started many years ago and continues on as it evolves. And I would encourage you, I put in my newsletter recently a link to the vision that is now a reality in Toronto, this Meadowway. I hope I said the right name, but anyways, it's a beautiful hydro corridor that everyone uses and has many different components to it. So we're on our way, but we will have another session. And I know Lindy and the Brookside Mortgage Grant Community Association would like to talk further about their vision as well. So more to come on that. So thank you very much, Lindy, for starting that off, and we'll talk more about that, because it is a gem, and it is land that in lots of other neighborhoods is not used for anything. So we're lucky for the people who came before us that started the project, and happy to continue it on. Anyway, send us any other thoughts you have, and we'll stay tuned with a construction date of next year. And I really appreciate staff coming out here tonight and presenting and answering questions. You worked all day and now you're working at night. So I really appreciate your time. Anyway, everybody have a good evening, and send us any thoughts you have. Good night.
Thank you very much for coming out. Thank you. Good evening.
Good night.
All right.